The office buzzed with the faint hum of late afternoon energy, but Marcus Reed's voice cut through it, stark and dry. "We're reorganizing the territory," he said, his gaze fixed firmly on the papers in front of him. He didn't meet my eyes. "Your position is being eliminated." The words hung in the air like a fog, thick and suffocating. I sat across from him, staring at the termination letter he had so casually pushed toward me. The ink on the $2 million contract I had just secured wasn't even dry yet. The deal that had taken me months of relentless work, countless flights, sleepless nights, and 43 rounds of negotiation. And now, just 2 weeks from the payout, Marcus had decided my future at Vetrix Optics would come to an end. "I understand," I replied, my voice unnervingly calm, as if the storm inside me had been buried beneath layers of ice. "Thank you for the opportunity." It sounded so hollow, the words slipping from my mouth like a rehearsed script, but it was all I could manage. "My name is Cassandra Doyle. I'm a 36-year-old senior sales executive, known for turning accounts into gold mines. But today, I was just a casualty of corporate greed, a name on a list of expendables. For 8 months, I had given everything to secure Horizon Innovations, not just as a client, but as my career-defining victory. And now, in an instant, I was nothing more than a name on a piece of paper. I gathered my things, my hands surprisingly steady as I packed up my desk. My colleagues stole glances at me, their eyes filled with a mixture of pity and a subtle sense of relief. They weren't in my shoes. Not yet. Marcus had timed this perfectly, right at 4 p.m. on a Friday, just as the majority of the office was clearing out for the weekend. It was a calculated move, the office politics playbook in full motion. "I'm so sorry, Cassandra," Violet from accounting whispered as she passed by, her voice low with empathy. "Everyone knows this isn't right." I smiled, a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "It's just business, right?" But it wasn't just business. It was personal. The Horizon deal wasn't just another client. It was everything. It was the culmination of my years of hard work, my sacrifice. It was my future, and Marcus knew it. We had discussed it just last month, over drinks, when he'd congratulated me on almost closing the deal. And now, he was discarding me as if I were a mere tool. I took one last look at the office where I'd spent the last 5 years, a place that had been both my home and my battlefield. The elevator doors closed behind me, and I rode down to the lobby, my back straight, my head held high. But inside, I felt something crack. I checked my phone. A message from Jonah Freeman, CEO of Horizon Innovations. "Dinner still on for Wednesday?" A small smile tugged at my lips. What Marcus didn't understand was that business wasn't just about contracts and numbers. It was about relationships. And my relationship with Jonah wasn't just professional. It was built on trust, on late-night conversations about our lives, about dreams, about things that had nothing to do with sales targets. As I walked to my car, I made a decision. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I had been one of Rex's top performers. I had built my client list from the ground up, turning struggling accounts into gold mines. And now, here I was, cut from the company I had poured my soul into. 3 months ago, Gregory Hansen had come in as CEO, bringing Marcus along as Vice President of Sales. And with them came the whispers, the restructuring, the shifting commission structure, the subtle nudges to hand over relationships to the account management team. My colleague, Thomas, had warned me. "They're pushing out the old guard, Cass," he'd said. "Fresh graduates, they pay them half as much." I didn't believe it. Not with my numbers, not with the Horizon deal so close to closing. but I should have listened. Growing up, my father always told me that loyalty in business had to go both ways. He had worked 30 years at the same company, from the mailroom to management, but that world was gone. Today's corporate world rewarded ruthlessness. People like Marcus, who saw employees as nothing more than expendable resources. I called my mother, though I couldn't bring myself to tell her the truth. Not yet, not when I'd promised to help with her medical bills. "How's my superstar?" she asked cheerfully. "Just fine, Mom," I lied, forcing brightness into my voice. "How are you feeling today?" "Better than yesterday. Worse than tomorrow," she quipped, as she always did since her surgery. After hanging up, I sat in my car, staring at my condo building, trying to formulate a plan. My severance would cover expenses for 3 months, but without the commission, I'd have to dip into my savings to cover Mom's next payment. I scrolled through my contacts and found Jonah's number. Our weekly dinners had become a tradition during the negotiations. He valued authenticity, something rare in a world full of corporate pretense. I hesitated for a moment before dialing. The line rang twice before his voice came through, warm and familiar. "Cassandra, I was just thinking about you. Still on for Wednesday?" "Absolutely," I replied, but then paused. "But Jonah, there's something we need to discuss." Wednesday evening found me sitting in La Cantera, an upscale restaurant in downtown Plano, the place where Jonah and I had celebrated our verbal agreement just 2 weeks ago. I arrived early, ordered a bottle of his favorite Cabernet, and chose a private corner table. Jonah walked in, his smile faltering as he read the tension on my face. "Something's wrong," he said, sitting down. I took a deep breath and laid out the truth. No embellishments, no emotional appeal, just facts. I had been fired 2 weeks before my commission would pay out on a deal I had architected from the ground up. Jonah's face darkened. "That's contemptible," he muttered, setting down his wineglass. I repeated the mantra I had been telling myself all afternoon. "It's just business." "No," Jonah replied, his voice steady. "Business is about relationships and integrity. Without those, it's just theft, wearing a suit." His words hit harder than any corporate speech I'd ever heard. They were raw, grounded in something real. And they carried weight, especially coming from the CEO of a $500 million company. "What will you do?" he asked, his eyes steady on mine. "I've received an offer from Crystalline Systems," I said, referring to a major competitor that had been courting me for years. Jonah nodded slowly, his mind calculating. "We have a 14-day rescission clause in our contract with Vetrix," I said, my voice calm, controlled. "Either party can withdraw without penalty. I'm not asking you to cancel. This has to be your decision." Jonah stared at me for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. "Harold," he said to his legal counsel, "pull the Vetrix contract. I want to invoke the rescission clause first thing tomorrow." He paused, listening, then continued. "Yes, I'm certain. Clear my morning schedule for a call with their leadership." The phone call ended, and Jonah sat back, his gaze lingering on me with an intensity that made the air between us feel thick with anticipation. "This isn't just about your commission, Cassandra," he said, his voice steady, yet laced with something deeper, an unspoken acknowledgement of the gravity of the situation. "During our negotiations, you promised that you personally would oversee the implementation. That was a material factor in our decision." I nodded, a small, almost imperceptible sigh escaping my lips. A weight I hadn't realized I was carrying seemed to lift from my chest. "Klein's product line is actually better suited for your needs," I added, speaking the truth. "Their optical components come with a longer warranty, and their custom design team has more experience with your specific applications." Jonah's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he asked, "When can you start there?" "Monday," I replied, the words tasting like fresh air after being suffocated for far too long. "They're eager to have me on board." "Good. Jonah raised his glass, his eyes never leaving mine. Then I look forward to hearing their proposal next week. Dinner flowed smoothly from there. Conversations about his daughter's college applications and my mother's improving health. The world outside, with all its pressures and expectations, felt so distant in that moment. I felt no triumph, no sense of vindication at Marcus's failure. There was no pleasure in seeing the dominoes fall. Instead, I found a quiet satisfaction, knowing that in a world where loyalty was an endangered species, integrity still mattered to a select few. By the time the check arrived, the first phase of my response to Marcus's betrayal was already in motion. Revenge was no longer the word I would use. It was correction. The following morning, my phone rang at 7:00 a.m. I didn't need to check the screen to know who it was. Marcus! I sent it to voicemail. It rang again, then again, until by the fourth call, my finger hovered over the green icon. Reluctantly, I answered. Cassandra! Marcus's voice came through, breathless, tinged with panic. We need to talk. I held the phone away slightly, almost in amusement. Marcus, my position was eliminated. Remember? My tone was a mask of politeness, as though we were discussing the weather. Horizon just canceled their contract, he said, his words coming out in a rush. I kept my voice steady. Jonah Freeman personally called Gregory and pulled out of the deal. There was a long pause on the other end. Did you have anything to do with this? His voice was tight, sharp now, an accusation veiled beneath a veneer of concern. How could I? I replied evenly. I don't work for Vetrix anymore. Listen. His tone shifted, now almost pleading. There's been a misunderstanding. We want to bring you back. Same position, better compensation package. The territory reorganization has been postponed. The audacity of it nearly made me laugh. That's a generous offer, Marcus, but I've already accepted a position with Crystalline Systems. I start Monday. Silence. Deafening silence. Crystalline? You can't do that, he said, his voice rising with frustration. Your non-compete. It doesn't apply when I've been terminated without cause. I finished for him, my voice cold as I recited the clause I'd reviewed just yesterday with my attorney. Page 4, paragraph 3 of my employment contract. Another pause. His end of the line crackled with tension. What did you tell Freeman? His voice was tight now, barely contained. The truth, I said, each word laced with finality. That I was terminated shortly after securing his business. Damn it, Cassandra! The mask of professionalism cracked. Do you have any idea what you've done? The board is going ballistic. This was a cornerstone deal for the quarter. It sounds stressful, I said, feeling an odd sense of calm wash over me. I should let you go so you can handle that situation. Best of luck, Marcus. I ended the call and leaned back, staring out the window as the morning light filtered in. The sense of satisfaction from a well-executed plan was a quiet hum in the background, but I didn't linger on it. Instead, I received a text from Violet, my old office contact. Office is chaos. Gregory called emergency meeting. Marcus looks like he's about to explode. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I drove straight to Klein's headquarters for an early meeting with their executive team. The gleaming glass building stood in stark contrast to Vetrix's aging office park, the cold, pristine structure an emblem of everything I was leaving behind. Inside, I was greeted by Eleanor Walsh, CEO of Klein, whose hand was firm as she welcomed me. Welcome to the team, Cassandra, she said. We're thrilled to have you. Thank you for the opportunity, I replied, my words carrying more sincerity than I had ever expressed to Marcus. Eleanor led me to a conference room where the executive team was waiting. Cassandra's joining us from Vitrix, she announced, her voice bright. And she's already creating waves. Horizon Innovations canceled their contract with Vitrix this morning. The room exchanged glances, a ripple of curiosity and admiration passing between them. Eleanor's smile widened. We have a narrow window of opportunity here. Cassandra has a relationship with Horizon's CEO. We need to move quickly to present our solution before their procurement team looks at other options. I cleared my throat, my mind racing. I've tentatively scheduled a meeting with Jonah next Wednesday. He's expecting our proposal. Eleanor's smile was all business now. Perfect. Let's make sure it's irresistible for the next 3 days. For the next 72 hours, I worked with Klein's product team to craft a custom package for Horizon. Unlike Vitrix's one-size-fits-all approach, we tailored every aspect of our offering to meet Horizon's specific needs. We proposed a pricing structure lower than Vitrix's, with better terms and stronger guarantees. It could be a $2.5 million deal, with expansion potential to $4 million within 2 years. By Monday afternoon, my phone had accumulated 8 voicemails from Marcus, 3 from Gregory, each more desperate than the last. The final one came just as I was leaving Klein's office. Cassandra, this is Gregory Hansen. Whatever Crystalline is paying you, we will beat it. Name your price. We need you back. I deleted it without a second thought. Some bridges, once burned, were not worth rebuilding. Wednesday arrived with an unexpected tension, despite my confidence in Klein's superior offering. Years of sales experience had taught me that nothing was certain until contracts were signed. As our team prepared to leave for the meeting with Horizon, I received a text from an unknown number. It's Thomas using Violet's phone. Urgent. Marcus is meeting with Jonah right now, offering 30% discount plus free implementation. My stomach dropped. Marcus was making a desperate counteroffer. I showed the message to Eleanor. Can we head over now? I asked. I think we may need to get ahead of this. Eleanor nodded, her expression grim. We left immediately. Upon arriving at Horizon's headquarters, the receptionist informed us that Jonah was in a meeting, but had left instructions to send us to conference room B. Walking through the familiar hallways felt surreal, like returning to a place I'd only dreamed about. When we entered the conference room, I stopped short. Sitting at the table was not only Jonah but Marcus, who was wearing a smug expression, and Gregory, who looked surprised by our entrance. Cassandra? Jonah stood, smiling warmly. Perfect timing. These gentlemen from Vitrix were just explaining why I should reconsider my cancellation. Marcus's expression shifted from confidence to discomfort, and I introduced Eleanor and the Klein team. We were under the impression we had an exclusive meeting, Gregory said, his tone clipped. I invited both parties, Jonah replied evenly. I believe in making informed decisions. What followed was the most unusual presentation of my career. Marcus outlined Vitrix's desperate concessions, price cuts, extended warranties, free training, while I presented Klein's thoughtful, customized solution. Jonah asked occasional questions, but gave no indication of his preference. When both presentations concluded, Jonah thanked everyone. This has been enlightening. I'll need to confer with my team before making a decision. Outside the building, Marcus cornered me in the parking lot. His voice was a hiss. You won't get away with this. You have no idea what you're up against. I smiled calmly. I'm up against a man who fired me to avoid paying my commission, Marcus. And that, I realized, was the truth. I think I understand the situation perfectly, Jonah said, his face reddening, as if he could still taste the remnants of the conflict. It wasn't personal. It was a business decision. And this is my business decision. He gestured toward Horizon's gleaming building outside. May the best solution win. I held his gaze, the weight of everything that had transpired settling over me like the calm after a storm. Crystalline, I thought. Eleanor was surprisingly upbeat as we left the meeting. You did well in there. Freeman was clearly more engaged during your presentation. He's thorough, I cautioned, though my confidence was unwavering. He won't make a decision based solely on personalities. 2 agonizing days passed. The air in my office felt thick with anticipation. But by Friday afternoon, as I sat staring at the glowing screen of my computer, the phone rang. Jonah's name flashed across the display. We've made our decision, he said, no preamble, no small talk. His voice was steady, but there was an unmistakable tension in the air. Can you come to my office at 4 p.m.? The drive to Horizon felt like traversing a minefield. Had Marcus's desperation, his underhanded tactics, swayed Jonah's procurement team? I felt the pull of uncertainty at my chest with every mile that passed. When I arrived, I was escorted directly to Jonah's office, my heartbeat quickening. To my surprise, no one from Vitrix was there. Just Jonah and his team. Cassandra, he greeted me, his expression unreadable. I want you to explain to our team exactly how Klein's optical sensors will integrate with our existing systems. For the next hour, I detailed the implementation process with precision, answering technical questions from Horizon's engineers, my voice unwavering despite the pressure. When we finished, Jonah stood, extending his hand. We'll go with Crystalline, he said simply. The contract is being drawn up as we speak. Relief flooded me, followed swiftly by a practiced professional composure. You won't regret it, I replied. The product truly is superior. I know, Jonah said, a slight smile playing on his lips. But equally important is working with people of integrity. 1 month later, I sat in my new corner office at Crystalline, reviewing the finalized contract with Horizon. The deal had come through at $2.5 million, with a clear path to expansion. My commission would be considerably larger than what I would have earned at Vitrix, with a more favorable payment structure. Violet had been texting me updates on the aftermath. Marcus had been placed on administrative leave, pending an investigation into his management practices. 3 other sales executives had resigned in solidarity with my situation. Rex's stock had dropped 11% following the loss of the Horizon deal, and the subsequent departures had sent ripples through the company. But the most satisfying development came that morning in the form of an email from Harold, Horizon's legal counsel. He had forwarded me an internal message from Jonah to his executive team. Our decision to partner with Crystalline over Vitrix wasn't just about pricing or product specifications. It was about aligning ourselves with a company that demonstrates the values we espouse. When Vitrix terminated Miss Doyle immediately after she secured our business, explicitly to avoid paying her commission, they revealed their true corporate character. Such short-sighted greed doesn't align with our long-term partnership goals. Crystalline, by contrast, recognized talent and integrity and moved decisively to acquire it. That's the kind of business instinct we respect. I printed the email and pinned it to my wall, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of what truly mattered in business. That afternoon, Eleanor stopped by my office. I just got off the phone with Bedford Industries, she said, showing me her tablet. Apparently, their procurement officer heard about how we acquired the Horizon contract and wants to discuss moving their business to us. I raised an eyebrow. Bedford? They've been with Vitrix for years. 7, I think, Eleanor confirmed. They're worth about $1.8 million annually. They're concerned about stability and leadership. Word spreading about what Marcus did to you. It wasn't just an isolated incident of corporate callousness. It's becoming a cautionary tale. That evening, as I was preparing to leave, my assistant forwarded a voicemail from Gregory Hansen. Cassandra, this is Gregory. I want you to know that Marcus Reed no longer works at Vitrix. His actions were not authorized by me or the board. We'd still like to discuss your potential return. Please call me. I deleted the message without a second thought. Some bridges, once burned, were not worth rebuilding. My new office had a view of the downtown skyline. My team was skilled and motivated, and my compensation package included equity in a growing company that valued relationships over quarterly numbers. More importantly, that morning, I had received a call from my mother's doctor. The latest tests showed significant improvement, and with my improved financial situation, I had been able to move her to a better specialist, one not covered by her insurance. As I drove home, I reflected on the past 5 weeks. I hadn't sought revenge. When Marcus betrayed me, I had simply ensured that consequences found him through his own actions. I hadn't torn down Vetrix. They had undermined themselves by prioritizing short-term gains over sustainable relationships. My phone buzzed with a text from Jonah. Implementation team says everything's ahead of schedule. Dinner next week to celebrate? Absolutely, I replied. First round's on me. My father's words about loyalty, about it going both ways, echoed in my mind. While the corporate world had changed since his time, some principles remained eternal. Integrity, relationships, and the understanding that how you treated people always came back to you in the end. Marcus had taught me a valuable lesson, though not the one he intended. In business, as in life, your reputation wasn't built on what you said, but on what you did, especially when you thought no one was watching. 6 months after joining Crystalline, I stood at a podium accepting the Sales Executive of the Year award at the annual industry conference. Looking out at the audience, I spotted several familiar faces from Vetrix, including Gregory, who offered a tight smile when our eyes met. My acceptance speech was brief and focused on the importance of business ethics and relationship building. I didn't mention Vetrix or the circumstances that led to my departure. I didn't need to. Everyone in the room knew the story. Success in sales isn't just about closing deals, I concluded. It's about creating true partnerships where both sides win. When we forget that, we're no longer sales professionals. We're just transaction processors. The applause was gratifying, but what happened afterward was even more so. A steady stream of industry colleagues approached me, some to offer congratulations, others seeking advice, and a few quietly inquiring about opportunities at Crystalline. Bedford Industries had indeed moved their business to us, followed by 2 other major Vetrix clients. Our company's market share had grown 15%, while Vetrix C's had declined by almost 20%. Jonah found me at the reception afterward. "Congratulations," he said, clinking his glass against mine. "Well deserved." "Thank you for taking a chance on Crystalline," I replied. "How's the implementation going?" "Ahead of schedule and under budget," he said. "Your team is exceptional." "They are," I agreed. "And so is yours." We chatted briefly about future projects before he was called away by another associate. As I watched him leave, Eleanor approached. "Have you seen this?" she asked, showing me her tablet. The headline read, "Vetrix Optics announces layoffs amid continuing market struggles." The article mentioned that Gregory Hansen had stepped down as CEO, replaced by the board chairman as interim leadership. I felt no joy at the news, only a sense of inevitability. The autumn wind scattered leaves across the sidewalk as I approached the care facility where my mother now lived. Thanks to my improved financial situation, she had a private room in the best rehabilitation center in Plano, with daily physical therapy and cutting-edge treatments. "There's my girl," she beamed as I entered, setting aside the book she'd been reading. At 68, she still had the sharp wit and warm smile that had guided me through life's challenges. "How's the new medication working?" I asked, taking the chair beside her bed. "The doctor says I'm responding better than expected," she replied. "I might be able to move back to my own place by Christmas." "That's wonderful, Mom." "And how's my corporate warrior doing?" she asked, her eyes twinkling. Still conquering the business world? I smiled, updating her on recent developments. I'd been promoted to Vice President of Strategic Accounts at Crystalline, with a team of 12 sales executives reporting to me. The Horizon implementation had been so successful that they expanded the contract to include 2 additional divisions, bringing the total value to $3.8 million. You know what your father would say about all this? She asked, a wistful look crossing her face. Success is best when it's earned, I quoted. She nodded, a soft smile on her face. He would be so proud of you, Cassandra. Not just for your achievements, but for how you've achieved them. After leaving the facility, I drove to a local coffee shop where I'd agreed to meet Thomas. He'd left Vitrix the previous month and had been interviewing with several companies. I've got good news, he said, his grin unable to be contained. I accepted an offer from Meridian Technologies. Congratulations, I said sincerely. Sales director, huh? That's amazing. 15% higher base than Vitrix, better commission structure. They're lucky to have you, I replied. I almost called Marcus to thank him, Thomas joked. Being associated with Vitrix these days is like having a golden ticket to the competition. As I built my new team and career at Crystalline, I occasionally thought about Marcus and the lesson he had inadvertently taught me. In the end, how we treat others determines not just their fate, but our own. My revenge wasn't in destroying him. It was in succeeding. Despite his attempt to devalue my contribution, the greatest vindication wasn't watching his downfall. It was creating my own ascent.